Hi all, and welcome to this week's session of Trails to Tasting, where we are going to be making coffee. And not from a coffee bean tree. We're going to be making it with roots of plants. So today we're going to learn how to make dandelion coffee. So let's figure out how to identify a dandelion from other plants, especially as we get into the fall and the flowers aren't so visible, to make it really easy to distinguish them from other plants. I have one right here. Let's take a look at it. This right here is our dandelion plant that we are going to want to harvest the roots from. You can identify them by the fact that they have these kind of spiky, you can see here at the top, it's an arrow-shaped leaf. Some of them are more lobed than other leaves are, but take a look for that. Oftentimes at the base, they have this reddish midrib that fades into white or green more towards the top. We can save these for dandelion greens later, so I'm going to put it in my foraging bucket. The dandelions, even though this one might have been rounder than the dandelion shown previously, it still has these dissected lobes, reddish at the tip. These do not. These also are a little fuzzy, while dandelions are smooth and for the most part pretty hairless. We've got some similar looking species here. When we look at this one, we see a basal cluster. They have a similar taper at one end, that nice midrib. The leaves here also form what is called a basal cluster, where all of the leaves are protruding from one single spot, as opposed to something like a clover or these other really small little grasses that might be coming up near the dandelions. What we need is the root of this plant. So let's now dig out the root to take a look at what that looks like. All right, I'm gonna dig it out, but keep in mind, if you are foraging for plants, especially plants that we want to have around for the future, digging out the root is going to remove this plant from right here. So you really want to be very conscientious anytime you're digging up roots. Is this a plant that you want to be around in the future? If so, don't dig it up when the plant has yet to go to seed. We want this plant to be here later. If this has flowered and now gone to seed, great, I'll have more of this plant in the future. But if it hasn't gone to seed yet, let that happen. Ugh. Dandelions have a very long taproot, might be a little difficult to get up. I chose a really bad spot, being right next to this wood cookie. But I want to get, see right here, this taproot. That's what we're going to be making coffee out of. Didn't get the full thing, but you can see this big, fat root. And dandelions have one very long, very thick taproot with then these tiny hairs that come off the side. We're going to be wanting to use these big, fat, thick taproots. Now remember, dandelions, especially in a lawn environment, are so important, not just for biodiversity, but also for lawn health. This nice, long, chunky taproot is going to be pulling up nutrients from deep down in the soil, pulling them up closer to the surface, which then allows the other plants ease of access to those nutrients. So we definitely want dandelions here in the lawn. So as you forage, don't just rip up willy-nilly all of your dandelions to make your coffee. Again, don't take all of anything that you forage. Make sure that you're following that 1 to 3 rule. 1 for me, 1 for pollinators, and 1 for reseeding for the future. So I've dug a couple of them up, and you can see these longer tap roots here. And we are going to want enough dandelion roots that when roasted, we'll be able to get at least 2 tablespoons of roasted root per 1 cup of coffee. Remember, when we roast, they're gonna shrink in size, so we're gonna need a little bit extra. This might look like I went a little crazy with my dandelion picking and harvesting. However, once these are washed and processed, it's a lot less, isn't it? But at least I'll have enough for 1 cup. I'm going to now want to roast it by baking it at 350 degrees for 40 minutes, or until they are a nice dried brown but not burnt. All right, it has been 40 minutes, so let's take the dandelion root out. We've got these little crunchy bits. I'm going to put them in a little container to store. You don't have to, you can use them right away. I will be adding 2 tablespoons to my little coffee pot here. Now that I have my little roasted dandelion root that's going to become my coffee, we can now add it to some water. The cocktail we're going to be creating today is going to be a take on Irish coffee. So it's going to be our coffee, a little bit of brown sugar, whiskey, and then some cream at the end. You could also add things like nutmeg or cinnamon to add some extra little fun fall flavor. To steep this, we are going to want to boil water and then put it over our steeper here with any extra spices or flavoring in our little mesh steeping container. All right, now we pour it over top. Make sure that it covers your root. I mean, already look at that color change. But now we're going to let this steep for about 10 minutes. Let this steep, and then we'll be good to go. All right, after time has passed and we have our beautiful dandelion coffee, we can make our cocktail. What you will need for this is your coffee, one spoonful of brown sugar, shot of whiskey or bourbon, and then top it all off with milk, cream, half and half. Yummy! Stir it all up. Oh, it smells good. Already it smells so good. And then, cheers to autumn. Wow! Oh, yum! Okay, so I had heard that dandelion coffee tastes like coffee but without the acidity. I've only ever had coffee, so I don't know what coffee without acid would taste like. And now I know. This has the rich, warm flavor of coffee, but it still is a tiny smidgen bitter, but the sugar really helped with that. But I don't know, it's kind of like when you have coffee, there's that weird aftertaste that you have like in the back of your mouth. And that's gone. You just have this like smack of coffee flavor and no weird aftertaste. I love it. So cool. Dandelions. Did you enjoy this week's session of Trails to Tasting with our dandelion whiskey coffee? I sure did. What a cool experience. All from nature's bounty in our own backyards. I mean, literally from where I'm standing. So cool. You can always subscribe to the Art of Ecology's channel here for more information about foraging goodness, just the natural world, and ways to interact with it. Stay tuned for more.